My parents had opposite visions of life. I always received diverging answers to my questions. I remember when still very young I came to the conclusion that it was useless to ask the adults, as they too did not know the answers. I decided then to look for the answers myself. My father enrolled me in a Catholic elementary school, probably because it was next to our house. I was unable to accept the dogmas and immediately questioned the existence of God. At the age of 7, I professed to be an atheist and refused the First Communion. Why the creation? I imagined going back in time and I didn't understand why suddenly everything had to disappear due to a creation. Several times the nuns called my parents. They repeated that if they didn't force me to take the communion, the devil would take possession of me. But there was nothing to be done. I continued to declare myself an atheist, regardless of the pressure and negative judgments I received. I was fascinated by the Big Bang Theory, the formation of galaxies and planets. I found an article in the National Geographic that described the universe that will collapse due to gravitational forces and then explode again. The mathematics showed that before re-exploding, the universe will be so compressed that it will be contained in a space smaller than the nucleus of an atom. How can all the galaxies and planets concentrate in such a small space? What is matter? Is it solid or is it empty? How can an object millions of light years away from me attract me? How can my atoms exert an attraction, even if minimal, on all the other atoms in the universe? How can I attract something that I don't even know exists? The law of cause and effect was clear to me, but the force of gravity was a mystery. I learned that among the many alternatives, it is possible to identify the true one by paying attention to the feelings of the heart. I started using this intuitive thinking to quickly find the correct solutions and was soon considered a genius in mathematics. People were asking me how I could find solutions to complex problems so instantly. I tried to explain the trick, the feelings of the heart that illuminated the solution, but no one understood what I was trying to say. My father was proud of the mountain village where he was born and often invited his foreign colleagues. Soon this village turned into a multicultural reality, and the contact with all these very different cultures favored my independent way of thinking. On Saturday, February 19, 1972, I went skiing. During the lunch break, I chose a pasta with meat sauce. Suddenly I felt in my heart the order to avoid eating meat, drinking coffee, alcohol, smoking, using drugs, and violent behaviors. My rational mind could not understand, but my heart was telling me to follow this order. I now know that I have eliminated everything that interferes with the perception of the heart, and this has helped me to discover syntropy. At the age of 16, I was chosen for a scholarship. 1 year in the United States, hosted by an American family. I ended in the Deep South. Cultural diversity was immense. From an exciting multicultural environment, I ended in a dogmatic and religious extremist environment. On the first Sunday, my American mother told me to go to church with them. I replied that I was an atheist and did not want to go to church. She replied, "It is not allowed." So I decided to get organized, and every Sunday I went to a different church. I started going to the White Baptist, to the Black Baptist, to Jehovah's Witnesses, to groups where they spoke in tongues, to Catholics. Every Sunday I went to a different church. Everywhere people were happy to welcome me and tried to convert me by repeating that their path was the only true one. After a couple of months, my American mother said to me, "We talked about it, and because you're an atheist, you must be also a communist, and communists are devils. We want you to go away." I found a very rich temporary family with 2 private planes and several Cadillacs. Then I ended in an extremely poor family. They had no money for food. We could only eat in the school cafeteria. The hygienic conditions were terrible. I had never seen anything like this in Italy. When I asked the father why they had decided to host me, he replied, "If you help someone, Jesus Christ will save you." I couldn't understand why there could be such extreme poverty in the richest country in the world. I was the only foreign student and had to attend school clubs. I was always at the center of attention. I had to parade, but I felt alone. Everyone seemed happy, but they abused alcohol, drugs, and violence was widespread. I fell into an existential crisis. What is right and what is wrong? What is friendship? What is love? What is the meaning of life? I began to experience anxiety and depression, situations that I did not know how to describe and even less to explain to others. Everyone around me seemed happy and expected me to be happy. I had to give public talks in places like the Rotary Club and the Lion Clubs to finance the association that organized the scholarship. I had to pretend I was happy and grateful when I was in pain and had no one to talk to. I began to count the days that remained before returning to Italy, to my old certainties. On April 2nd, 1976, I went to Joplin, Missouri, to meet other foreign students. After lunch, I spent the whole afternoon talking with a friend from Iran. We sat on the banks of a small artificial lake. I needed to understand what anxiety and depression were. Everyone around me seemed happy, and I wondered if I was the only person to suffer. The friend from Iran told me that according to Islamic science, there is another level besides matter and energy. He told me that physical energy is diverging, while this other level is made up of converging energy, which goes towards unity, love, and cohesion. We start talking about this other level, and our imagination started to fly. A cohesive energy that is perceived as warmth and well-being. When this energy is lacking, one feels emptiness, pain, anxiety, and depression. We began to dream a future full of this energy, where love and cohesion are the norm. A very different world from the one we were in at that time. Suddenly, I began to feel happy, to feel love. I felt that life has a meaning and that the future of humanity is not wars and destruction, but love and unity in diversity. That night I woke up around 3:30. I was immersed in a luminescent orange mist that radiated warmth and love. In front of me there was a light so dense that it could be touched. This light radiated love, well-being, peace, and tranquility. I touched it, and suddenly I saw the future of humanity flowing in front of me. A future full of life, well-being, and love. I saw large, transparent, and luminescent structures in which life flourished intensely. Then suddenly I saw I was drawn into this thick orange light. I don't know how long it lasted, but when I got out of it, I felt I had received a message of fundamental importance that my rational mind could not understand. The light faded. I tried to reconnect, but it dissolved. I felt the cold, the darkness, and the solitude of the room, and a shiver down my spine. I woke the person next to me and asked if he had seen or heard anything, but he told me to stop making noises. He wanted to keep sleeping. I tried to reconnect with this light of love, but I didn't know how. When I returned to Italy, my parents had just separated, and instead of the old certainties, I found many new uncertainties. In the mountain village, my foreign friends were no longer there. The exciting multicultural environment was gone. Anxiety and depression increased, and I felt in a tunnel of despair. I found comfort only in the memory of the orange light of love, even if this was incompatible with my atheist and materialistic view of the universe. On April 19, 1977, my girlfriend called me and told me she had a new boyfriend. I went to wash my face, and while I saw the drops of water falling into the sink, I had the vision of syntropy. Converging energy must exist. I could see it in the force of gravity. In addition to the diverging energy that we all know, such as light and heat, there must also be a converging energy. I saw the diverging energy governed by entropy, the tendency towards death and destruction, while converging energy governed by a symmetrical law, syntropy, that goes towards life and love. I saw entropy and syntropy dancing. changing their proportions in the visible and invisible sides of reality in a sort of never-ending game that shapes the universe. I saw opposites attracting, a law well known in physics but also true with humans, where opposite polarities, such as males and females, attract each other, an endless game of attractions. I saw the synchronicities described by Jung and Pauli. For Pauli, causality acts from the past, while synchronicities act from the future. Synchronicities are meaningful because they lead to a goal. They provide direction and purpose. I could see it in metabolism, where syntropy concentrates energy by increasing order and organization. But since the concentration of energy cannot be infinite, at a certain point the flow is reversed and energy and matter are released, activating the opposite process of entropy. I saw that this interaction of entropy and syntropy causes an exchange of energy and matter with the environment, where catabolic processes are entropic and transform higher level structures into lower level structures, and anabolic processes are syntropic and transform simple structures into complex structures. A game of building and destroying that allows life to evolve. I suddenly understood the link between entropy and death, and between syntropy and life. Time seemed to have stopped as all the pieces of the mosaic came together. In a split of a second, my vision had changed. I saw that each level requires conditions: the material need, the need for meaning, and the need for love. When these needs are unmet, alarm bells warn us as hunger, thirst, cold, but also depression and anxiety for non-material needs. I realized that syntropy focuses our consciousness, our feeling of existence, towards the infinitely small, while entropy expands physical reality towards the infinitely large. Consequently, when we deal with the outside world, we feel to be equal to zero, and the identity conflict between being and not being is generated. If we are equal to zero, life has no meaning. This was exactly what my existential crisis was telling me. I felt meaningless and depressed, and I could not see a way out of this suffering. But as soon as I saw my existential crisis as an equation, I also saw the solution. I called it the theorem of love because union is love. The theorem of love says that love gives meaning to life. I had found the way to understand my existential crisis. In a moment, my suffering, my depression and anxiety dissolved. The impact of this vision has been profound. I realized that we have a dashboard. When we need water, the thirst light comes on and tells us we need to drink. When we need food, the hunger light goes on and warns we must eat. The needs for water and food are well known and fall into the category of material needs. Syntropy shows that there are vital non-material needs that arise from the invisible reality. These are less known, and we often don't provide an answer to them. When the depression warning light comes on, The dashboard informs us that we must give meaning to our life. When the anxiety warning light comes on, the dashboard tells that we need to acquire syntropy. Let's try to better understand these two needs, starting from depression. Entropy is the law that governs physical diverging energy, while syntropy is the law that governs vital converging energy. The physical world expands under the effect of diverging energy, while the ego concentrates under the attraction of syntropy. When we compare ourselves to the physical world, we discover that we are equal to zero. This is incompatible with the feeling we exist. And the conflict between being and not being arises, characterized by feelings of uselessness, lack of meaning, purpose, and depression. The most used strategy to try to mitigate this suffering is to expand our ego, for example, through wealth, popularity, money, and the envy of others. We inflate our ego by spending on cars, luxury clothes, exclusive vacations, a dream home, and for completely useless objects. The result is always the same. Comparing ourselves with the outside world, the conflict between being and not being continues. We seek more and more wealth and luxury for a temporary relief from depression. Another strategy is to reduce the world to a community that becomes our only reference. Our whole reality is limited to the community, and we feel the need for being totally accepted. This causes a strong psychological attachment. We become capable of doing anything to be accepted by the community. This can result in extreme behaviors. One example, the mass suicide of the followers of the Jim Jones Temple, where nearly 1,000 Americans knowingly poisoned themselves to obey their guru. Another strategy is to remove the outside world, replacing it. This explains personality disorders, such as the narcissistic disorder where self-love prevails, the psychotic disorder where the outside world is our ego in full crisis, and the neurotic disorder in which psychotic and narcissistic disorders are combined. From a mathematical point of view, the only solution to the identity conflict is given by the theorem of love. When we unite with the outside world through love, the identity conflict is solved. When entropy and syntropy come together, the conflict between being and not being ends. Let's see how syntropy explains anxiety. Syntropy says that there is an invisible world where attractors guide us from the future. When the connection with the attractor is good, syntropy flows inside us, causing warmth and well-being. Otherwise, we feel emptiness, pain, and cold. This is referred to as anxiety and angst. These feelings can be used as the needle of a compass that indicates the direction. When we feel well-being and warmth, it means that we are converging towards the attractor, while when we diverge, we feel emptiness, pain, and void. Warmth and well-being indicate that the direction is right. This leads to solution, insights, and to accomplish our mission, the purpose of our life. For more information, the website syntropia.it allows to download for free books on the topic, including the vital needs theory.